Hello. You've all heard from me already today, but my name's Alycia. I'm the manager of the Student Learning Hub. The Student Learning Hub is a UTS 2027 project. We're looking into physical and online spaces for students to connect with each other and with UTS support services around their learning. The Student Learning Hub has existed for approximately a year, and my goodness, what a year it has been. I think we can all agree it's been a wild ride. So what do we actually do? So the short answer is a lot. I only have 10 minutes to talk before we get into the activity, so I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. So first of all, we have a peer-to-peer learning support service point where students, UTS students and the public can access Student Learning Hub guides who will provide guidance to students, helping them navigate to the service or the system that will help solve whatever problem it is that they have. The second thing we do is we develop resources for students. Two of those pieces that we have produced, and I'll talk about them later, is How to Uni and the UTS Student Hacks podcast. And we do that in collaboration with different specialists that are situated around UTS. And the third thing we do is we operate, and this is more around our operational model, we operate using and maintain two research-based models. The first one is the UTS Support Services Framework, which I'm only going to touch on a little bit today. And most importantly, the sessional student journey. So this is a student journey map that we integrate into all of our different services around campus. So I'm going to touch on very briefly the peer-to-peer service point. So our peer-to-peer service is both physical and online. In fact, you have theoretically already interacted with it by using the Ask a Student chat on the Supporting Online Study page. So UTS is a big and confusing place, and there's lots of processes and there's lots of systems that can make it really hard for students to know what to do when they need something. Especially when that something is just a teensy bit out of the box. So we operate what we call a Tier 01 service. So I've put a little description of the service model on that page so you can have a quick look at what that means. So Tier 0 is self-help through online resources, and Tier 1 is assisted self-service. So that includes things like filling out forms, interacting with a booking system, or any other place where they need to actually interact or transact with the service or with the place that they need help from. So it also includes general inquiries and things like that. And it can also include triage to an appropriate Tier 2 service. And when we talk about Tier 2 services, we mean professional advice on complex matters that require problem solving. And Tier 3, it's more around specialist advice and specialist services that require a little bit more of an intense moment. So our Tier 01 triage service helps them to know where they should go and connects them with the Tier 2 service that can help them. We also pilot new service models to test out how we can improve the user experience for students. And we take the findings of each of these pilots and we share them as widely as we can. We change our own service model, and we also see where these pilots can inform other units if they want to pick up what we've learned as well. So the Student Services Framework, only going to touch on it very briefly, but you've already interacted with the Student Services Framework as well today through the Supporting Online Study page. So this is one of the key frameworks we use to understand what the range of support offered at UTS is. You'll have seen a version of this on the Supporting Online Study page. It was developed as part of the LXT by a human-centered design team led by Susan Hansen, who you'll hear from later today. And it's been tested and validated with students, and we operationalize it in a few different areas, including the Supporting Online Study page and in Canvas. The main thing I'm here to talk about today, though, is the sessional student journey. So this is actually how we prioritize and deliver support to students throughout the session. And it's in its rawest form, it's a shared understanding of the goals and the pain points that students experience. And we turn these goals and pain points into weekly themes in the Student Learning Hub that seek to sort of encapsulate the essence of those pieces. So we start with a different piece of work that also came out of LXT, that was also led by Susan and the Human-Centered Design team, which is their LXT student journey. We also bring in elements of the MCU student journey, and then we marry that with the inquiry and service analytics that we get throughout the session. So we operate a weekly and sometimes fortnightly inquiry stand-up with a whole range of different services, and we pull all of that information and everything that we learn into this student journey, and then we also nuance it with student feedback. So as a peer-to-peer service point, we have students coming and talking to other students in a way that's very different to how they would talk to somebody who they would see as a little bit fancier. And we also pull in some of that feedback from the different student-centered projects that are happening all over UTS. So with those themes, we take the goals and the pain points of students, and we try to elevate the profile of services that will help students achieve those goals. And we pilot improved service delivery so that we can help students overcome those pain points. And you will have seen the student journey when you had a look at the supporting online study page. So I've got a little red arrow there that shows you where you can find those pieces. And you'll have noticed in the scavenger hunt, I stuck in a sneaky question about what you think the theme of those top 3 boxes actually is. And we're going to get to that soon. So how else do we deliver on the student journey? So we use it in our peer-to-peer help, as I've mentioned. We also have a How to Uni program, which has 3 main parts, because we know that these pieces from our analysis, we've seen that these elements around how to actually get uni done are a recurring issue for students that they have to keep coming back to, revising and nuancing and having it there for them to be able to access whenever they want to, rather than in the form of a workshop at the beginning of session in orientation, is optimal. So this How to Uni program came out of work that Tyler, who you'll also hear from later today, did with his FTDI students. So they put together their lessons learned and passed it along to the next cohort of BTI students. And then Tyler and those students were kind enough to want to share the things that they had learned more widely. So we had planned to have some workshops in the hub, but COVID hit, and so we turned them into self-paced modules that students can access anytime. And you can access anytime as well. They're all on the website. The other thing we do around the student journey is the UTS Student Hacks podcast. So we have regular episodes. At the moment, they're fortnightly. And it's from students, and they're talking to students, and they're talking about the stuff that affects them. And they interview different experts or specialists around UTS. But now you need to know what the student journey looks like in practice. Like what have we learned about the student journey in this time? So this is a little graphic that I'm going to use to show how all these pieces have come together so far in spring. And I'm really sorry for the teeny tiny text, but this slide is going to get hectic as we add more data to it. So across the top, I'll move my mouse so you can see. Across this bit here, you can see the themes that the hub came up with around the student journey for spring session, for the first 6 weeks of session. We've also got some key dates that we knew were placing administrative pressure on students. And this graph actually shows the pattern. So this is the pattern of page views on that supporting online study page. So we can see that at the beginning of session, students are doing a little bit more self-help seeking because of course they are. They're reorienting themselves, they're looking like they're restarting something, they want to keep up to date with how things are going, and there's also a bunch of new students. And throughout the session, you see them becoming potentially more comfortable, but also potentially more disengaged. And it's hard to say because we don't know about what the exact cause is of them no longer sort of smashing out that help seeking. So we hope that the reason they're not help seeking is because they're okay, but we're pretty sure it's not. To the point where suddenly when it starts to get into assignment time, they're sort of launching back into that self-help again. And we've seen in the last week as well that the numbers on this page have picked up as well. So we don't know if it's because they're coming more comfortable or if they're actually developing other help-seeking patterns, including bypassing these kinds of triage points. So the next slide is these are the main themes of the self-help resources that they're accessing via the student learning, the supporting online study page. So I've looked at the top pages and the top clicks and all of the places that they've gone after they've been there, and I've categorized them into the two main goals that students are achieving each week. So at the beginning, it's accessing classes and readings, and it's looking at joining a learning community. And it moves through, and as you can see, it starts to get more into social connections and then doing uni work and doing assignments. And it should be noted that there's a low level background noise of staying up to date with the changes around returning to campus and dealing with COVID. And then finally, in this last bit, we have here are the things that they're actually asking us questions about at the hub. So these are the three main areas that we're seeing students engaging with us around. So this is either where there's a blocker to self-help, where they can't access the self-help that they need, or they just want to discuss it with a person, because sometimes they just want to talk to you, and that's actually kind of lovely. There's a big problem though, like there's a massive problem with this data, and some of you may have already noticed this massive gap that we have, and that's you. So we know that students interact with you in their faculty and their teachers in a way that's vastly different to how they would interact with us in support services and how they interact with each other and the kinds of things that they express. And so what we want to do, and this is something you'll be doing in your breakout rooms, is have a think about the student journey from this perspective. You've seen how we develop it, you've seen the kind of information that we pull in and what we look at. But I'm really keen on finding out what you see the goals and the pain points are in faculty. What are the things that students ask you? What are the things that you can see that they struggle with? So I'm going to end this slide. There we go. So I'm ending the slideshow, and you'll see in the Google document, hopefully you can still see my screen, there's an activity. If you click on the Jamboard page, you'll see this guy. Now, this probably looks like a massive chaotic mess. And that's because it is, because that's what student support looks like. But you'll see down the side here, we have tier 0, which is the pain points or the goals that they're experiencing. And then down here, we've got tier 1, which is the kinds of stuff that they're asking for help around. And I've mapped out the same sort of stuff that was in the slide that I showed you onto the different weeks of the session, so that you can see what kinds of questions and what kinds of goals students have throughout the year. There are also another 19 pages, one for every group that you have. And I've got a blank sheet that you can add to, and your group number is up in the top corner. And you'll know that group number when you get sent off into your breakout rooms. And a little sample, nope, I'm on the wrong thing. A little sample pain point. So I just want you to write what you think the pain point or the goal is, and then I want you to use the abbreviation of your faculty so that we can have a bit of an idea if it's different depending on what faculty you're from as well.
Alycia, they may not know how to use Jamboard. You want to just quickly give an example?
Yes, okay, let's go back to that. So to add a thing to Jamboard, you can use this sidebar here. There's a couple of different ways to do it. My preference is for the sticky note because it's brightly colored. You can choose a different color per person if you want to. I don't really care about the colors. I use lots of different colors on my one, and I use some weird color coding technique, but it doesn't matter. You can just type it in. So this is a pain point, and I'll pretend I'm from DAB. Sorry, DAB. And then it will stick on the page, and you can move it to the right week, and you can make it bigger or smaller. And if it's something where you know they've asked you lots of questions about it, you can move it further down into the pain point section. Or if it's sort of a low level background noise of stuff that you know that they're asking about, you can stick it further up to the top. And if it's bigger, I'm going to assume that more students are impacted.
Okay, so let's move to the breakout rooms then.